Welcome to the next lesson in this year's Climate and Nature Summit, COP28, Let's Have a Conversation. Before we begin, I would like to thank your teacher for bringing this lesson into your classroom. So let's get started. So first of all, where did this word COP come from? So COP28. Well, it comes from this term because it's actually called the Conference of the Parties. So a conference is when people come together to discuss something. So you could have an education conference where teachers and other people who are interested in education would come together to discuss learning. So who is coming together for a discussion? The parties are coming together. And the parties are different government organisations from around the world. So COP28 then means that it is the 28th time that the parties are coming together. This is year 28 that they are coming together. And I wonder, do you know where they are coming together to meet this year? If teacher would like to stop so you can see if anybody knows, you can. So this year, for the 28th COP, the parties are all going to the United Arab Emirates to have their conference. So does anybody know anything about the United Arab Emirates? Perhaps we could start with the flag, if you might like to guess what colours are on the flag. Again, if you want to pause, you can. And I'll bring up the flag now and you can see if you guessed any of the colours right. So this is the flag of the UAE, or the United Arab Emirates. And I wonder, would anybody like to guess where in the world the United Arab Emirates is located? Again, if you would like to pause, and then I'll bring up a map and show you. So the UAE is a long way away from us. So here we are up here. This is Ireland up here. Here we have the United Kingdom, and this big area here is Europe. So to get to the UAE, you have to go all the way across Europe down to here, to an area known as the Middle East. And this here is where the UAE is. So COP28, the Conference of the Parties, they're coming together, the governments are coming together in the UAE to have a talk. So what are they going to talk about? So again, if teacher would like to pause the video for a moment and you can have a little chat and see, does anybody know what they are coming together to talk about? So the governments or the parties are coming together in the UAE to talk about climate change, and probably more importantly, to talk about climate action, things that we can do to help our planet. So before we go any further, we want to make sure that we all understand what climate change is. So we'll watch this short animation and then we'll come back to this.
Why is the Earth heating up? Our Earth is surrounded by a very important layer of gases called the atmosphere. The atmosphere acts like a blanket and it keeps planet Earth at the perfect temperature. However, we are adding gases to this blanket, which is making the Earth warmer than it should be. But where are these extra gases coming from? They come from the burning of fossil fuels. These are fuels such as coal, oil, and gas. When we burn fossil fuels, we release a gas called carbon dioxide, or CO2, into the atmosphere. This CO2 joins the blanket, making the Earth warmer. Because Earth is warmer than it should be, our climate is changing. Around the world, we are seeing more floods, droughts, storms, and heat waves. We call this climate change.
So that's what climate change is. It's our planet heating up because we are adding carbon dioxide to our atmosphere. So there's a lot of science in that. But what we really need to think about is, what can we do? What can we do to help the planet, and what can we do to stop our planet from heating up? So Earth is our shared home. We share it with each other, and we also share it with nature, with all of the plants and animals. So it's really important that we do our best to protect our environment and to protect planet Earth. So I'm going to ask teacher to pause the video again now for a second. And what I want you to do before we move on is I want you to think with your partner about 2 things. Can you come up with your partner with 2 things that we could do to help the planet? So I'll give you a minute to do that and then you can come back to me. So what kind of things did you come up with? So when I was thinking about this, I thought about recycling my waste and making sure that I use as little waste as possible and recycle what I can. Walking and cycling, so not using the car is another good one, isn't it? When we can, if we can walk and cycle to school if possible. Turning off switches, so turning off the lights and anything else, our computers, not leaving things plugged in when we don't need them, because a lot of our electricity still comes from burning fossil fuels. That's what creates the energy or creates our electricity. And this one is really, really important, planting trees, because trees breathe in carbon dioxide. So they take the carbon dioxide out of the air. So the more trees that we plant, the better. So that's a really, really good one. So I'm sure that you came up, these are quite simple. I'm sure you came up with lots and lots of really good ideas, much better than these ones. But when you were talking, I wonder if anybody came up with the most important action, with the most important thing that we can do to help the climate change issue. So if teacher wants to pause again for a second, just to have another little think about that, out of all the things we can do, what do you think is the most important thing? Well, the most important thing that we can do as a climate action is talk. Because lots of people still don't know about climate change, or they don't know why it is happening. And if we all start talking about it more, well, then we can learn from each other. And very often people will listen to and they will trust their friends and their family much more than a stranger, like let's say somebody on the news. So when we are talking with somebody else, we are having a conversation. If we are doing one other thing, we must talk and we must listen. I think a few people got that. So if we were talking and listening with other people, then we are having a conversation. Now, this isn't just me saying this. So this lady here, this is Professor Katharine Hayhoe, and she is a world-known climate scientist. And Professor Katharine, she is from Canada, and she says in everything she does, she says that the most important thing that we must do as a climate action is we must talk about it and we must have conversations. So if we are going to take action by talking and having conversations, we should probably spend some time thinking about what makes a good conversation. So we already know that we need to do 2 things. We need to talk and we need to listen. But first, let's watch this little video to help us to think about what else we might need for good conversations. Hey Tom, I've learned about something else that we can do to help our environment. Really? Most of our cars run on fossil fuels, so we have to stop using our car. But we must all start walking and cycling to school. But the roads are too dangerous for me to walk or cycle. Well, we just have to start walking and cycling more. So do you think that was a good conversation? Was there talking and listening? So I'm going to ask teacher to pause again just for 1 minute. And I want you and your partner to have a little chat about that conversation. I want you to think, number 1, do you think it was a good conversation? And what could either Bob or Tom have done to have had a better conversation? So 1 minute and we'll come back to that. So when you were talking with your partner, did you talk and listen? Did you think that that was a good conversation between Bob and Tom? Well, it probably wasn't a great conversation because Bob was doing most of the talking. Also, Bob had learned that driving is not good for the environment. And even though he wanted everybody to start walking and cycling, sometimes even though we think something is a good idea, it may not be a good idea for everyone. So I'm sure you came up with lots of other things that we need to have a good conversation. So when I was thinking about it, these are the things that I came up with. So I thought a really important part of having a good conversation is that we take turns in talking and we take turns in listening. It's also so important to be kind when you are having a conversation. Showing respect, that we show respect for each other, and even if I think your opinion isn't right, or even if I'm not sure that I agree with you, I always show respect to the person I'm speaking with. And that it's okay to disagree. So while it's right for one person to walk or cycle to school, for example, it won't be okay for everybody. Some people live too far away, some people live on a dangerous road, there's lots of reasons. So we all try our best, but we have to always be kind in our conversations. So now we know that there is a big conversation happening this week. Can you remember what it is called? That's right, COP28. And I wonder, can you remember where COP28 is happening? Yes, it's happening in the UAE, or the United Arab Emirates. So these parties, the Conference of the Parties, these governments, they are coming together to talk about climate change and climate action. They are going to have climate conversations. But all of our voices are so important, and your voice is so important. And it's important that we use our voice to have respectful conversations. So let's have some climate conversations this week. So who will we talk to? Who will we be speaking to? And what will we talk about? Well, we will talk about the climate, and we can talk about nature. And who will we talk to? Well, our family is a really good place to start. We can talk to our mum and dad, or our brothers and sisters, and tell them about the things that we are learning in school about climate and nature. And we can also have great climate conversations in our school. And who knows, I bet you will definitely inspire somebody to take action for our climate and for our environment. So that brings us to the end of our lesson, and I would just like to finish up by saying thank you very much, and in particular a big thank you to your teacher for bringing this lesson to you. Slán live.